Good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Hammond. I'm the education coordinator for Autism for Children's Mercy, Kansas City, and I have been in that position for about 14 years. And I always say that's maybe one of the best things Kayla has done for me is get me a great job. I have a lot of different background. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep for many years, and I'm also a childbirth educator and a doula, and so I've done a lot of different things. But in this position, it has really been just ideal for me in the stage of life that Kaylee's in and that we're in. So because I work for a hospital, we always have to give a little disclosure, and there we go. So just really, because we're talking about self-care today, this is not a lot of evidence-based or any evidence-based thing other than a study of one, right? Of what's worked for me. So it's really just my personal experience, doesn't affect the views of Children's Mercy. It's just me. And I do say that some in this talk, my view of my own is partly faith-based. And again, just my perspective, not my always recommended version of self-care for others, just my deal. And I certainly would never mean to offend anyone. So whenever I give a talk or whenever I listen to a talk, maybe even more importantly, I always think, gosh, what qualifies that person? And especially when we talk about, kids getting, I was going to set my timer here, kids, affecting us and having an impact on us. I just think, what's your hook? Are you a care provider? Did you have a sibling? Do you know someone? And mine is absolutely Kaylee. And this is our oldest daughter. She's 28 years old. Actually, April 22nd, she's going to be 29, which is just sort of mind-boggling. You ever remember those times, if you have any older kids, when you thought they were never going to grow up, and now I'm like, holy crud, she is going to be 29 years old. Kaylee has a profound intellectual disability. She has really profound autism, severe, now that we're categorizing them even more definitively. She is completely nonverbal, not for without hundreds of hours of speech therapy, not for without trying to try several augmentative communication devices. Her cognition really does sit around 12 to 18 months. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on another slide, but clearly she's the light of our lives. She's taught us so much about life, things that I didn't really know I needed to know, but I guess I do. And I'll just tell you a little bit about her situation because it's changed. So she went through actually several schools growing up. We ended up changing from Missouri to Kansas, which is a very long story, but she got a certificate from Shawnee Mission East. She was in the 18 to 21 year program there. While she was growing up, my husband and I and several other like-minded parents started a foundation for kids with special needs in the Catholic school system on the Missouri side called FIRE, which is the Foundation for Inclusive Religious Education. It was essentially allowing kids that had otherwise been excluded in the Catholic school system to attend school there. And we just had our 25th anniversary of that, and we've raised about $6 million for inclusive education in the Catholic school system. And that was really, that's been a really nice thing that's come out of having these kiddos that we've had with all different diagnoses and wanting them to go to school alongside their siblings and peers. In addition to Kaylee, just kind of telling you a bit about my story, we also have two typical kids. I always like to say typical instead of normal. And Julia's 26 years old. She's a KU grad. She's a kindergarten teacher with also a certification in early education and special education. It was kind of funny when she was growing up. I was like, really? You want to go into special ed? Like, are you sure? You've lived with it all of your life. And she's like, Mom. And I'm like, okay. But I think it's been a great fit for her. And then our son, Daniel, is 21, and he's a student at Creighton, a business student and a baseball player. And I'm going to see him play later today. So what I love about this picture is that even though we might not think our kids are getting things, sometimes I wonder with her cognition if she's getting things. This kind of gave me the spooks when I revisited this presentation, because this picture is the day we moved her into her supportive group home. And she was 26, 25 years old. We finally came off the list. You know, we had vetted so many different places. We were excited. And can you see her face? She's like, something is going on, man. I mean, something is going to happen here. And Julia and Daniel both look happy. And I will be absolutely honest to report that we all sobbed all the way home and pretty much the whole rest of the night. And because even though sometimes when things are maybe a welcome change, they can be really, really still very, very hard. At least they have been for us. And interestingly enough, when the pandemic hit and everything closed down, Kaylee had been there about 18 months. Something switched in her, and she came home every weekend to be with us. So we were in constant contact with her, but I could tell something was not right. And, you know, as a parent of a nonverbal child, I'm just thinking, please, dear God, let nothing traumatic have happened to her that I don't know about. Because, of course, there's staff coming in and out of the home, and, you know, they're vetted. But golly, it was really, really hard. And so we made a decision. It really wasn't a decision. I mean, we just had to do it. We had to bring her back home. So we gave up her spot. So she's been back home with us now for 20 months. I thought I was done getting helpers, scheduling people, doing all that I'd done for so many years. And now I'm back doing it again. But long story short, after about 3 months, almost 4 months of diagnostics, she had become self-injurious. That's how I knew the difference. She's never been self-injurious in her life, other than a little anxiety causing her to pull some hair out or tick a little bit more. And not that that's minimal, but that's the difference. Well, this was completely different. I mean, she had bruised herself all down her arm. She had destroyed things. It was a new level. And I just kept telling the doctors, you must keep looking. You must keep looking. And through all kinds of tests, they found that she had not one, but 4 kidney stones that had completely blocked her right kidney. And it was excruciatingly painful. And the day that they went in and lithotripsy those kidney stones, it was an immediate difference. So I think there's an extra challenge to having a nonverbal kiddo. Can you relate to this story? So our families are not exempt from other things happening, right, in the world, to us. And at one point in about 2009, 2010, my husband had lost his 25-year job with Ford Motor Company. And it was just a big surprise. And our high school daughter at the time, Julia, who you saw a picture of, was struggling with a big sports injury. She was a big soccer player. And guess what? Kaylee's behavior was terrible. How about that? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started having some significant heart issues. And I've never had heart issues I'm a super healthy person. And I was, so finally, after numerous, small things like my heart rate, I would get into arrhythmia that would go up to about 220 beats per second per minute. It would sustain for 45 minutes. It was bad. And so I decided that I finally, had to go see somebody about it. And I get to this appointment with this cardiologist. And she's like, okay, well, tell me what's going on. And it had been a day already that day. I remember it was the afternoon. And I said to her, look, here's the deal. I said, my husband would kill me if I died right now. I said, and she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I mean it. Like, we need to figure this out because he needs me. He was having a terrific struggle with depression from losing his job. And I just said, I need to be there. And so please help me figure that out. And they did. But I just was like, so all the more reason why we have to think about self-care, because I believe at that time I was trying to do it all myself because he wasn't able at that time to be such a participative member, and it was rough. So keep listening, and I'll suggest some self-care things. But here's just a snapshot of caring for Kaylee, so you just have an idea. So she requires total support in all activities of daily living. We know her cognitive age. We talked about that. Interestingly enough, though, and I don't know if any of you that are parents have this with your kids, even though she has that lower cognition, her body is totally regular on everything else. I mean, she's the only thing she's done ahead of schedule is get her period, right? So, I mean, it's just amazing that those things still go and work. And she, to this day, really loves cute men. I always tell men if she gets up close to them and starts getting super excited, and they're like, whoa, 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 hi. And I'll say, hey, consider yourself flattered because she only likes the cute ones. She does not like the others. She just likes the cute ones. And, I mean, it's just like everything's working, but she doesn't know exactly what to do about it. And she doesn't have those social understandings of what to do about it. So what a typical day entails for me is showering her, toileting her, dressing her, cutting up her food, getting her ready for her day service. She goes to a wonderful day service, scheduling her helpers, making sure that she's exercised. Well, at the end of the day, also helping her with feeding, getting her on the bus, giving her meds. I'm sure this all sounds potentially familiar to you, or at least parts of them. The hardest part, without a doubt, is the nonverbal part, her being completely nonverbal. Case in point, this most recent hardest health thing that had ever happened with her was excruciating for Dan and I. It's the worst time we have ever had in all the things that we've gone through with her. She just kept looking at me during that health struggle of like, figure it out, Mom. Like, you always figure it out. Why can't you figure it out? And that part was just excruciating. And certainly putting her out there, I'm always talking to families about building capacity, get your kids out there, get out there with them. I know it's harder, but it's just going to help all of us. Well, I just know that in doing so, you have to trust the people that you put them in contact with, and you don't always have control over that. So clearly her not being able to report is the hardest part. Having said that, she has an amazing sense of trust and amazing, solid judgment of character. It's remarkable. And I'm happy that that's the case. So how do families like ours feel? We feel overwhelmed, pretty much. I think many of us do on a daily basis. We feel a little bit guilty of all kinds of things, not spending enough time with our typical kids, not having enough time for ourselves or our spouse or our partner. I think sometimes sadness really sneaks in, and this can just kind of come up and hit you in the face surprisingly. So I think that we're often kind of continually grieving. I think we can feel underprepared for certain things just by the amount of time involved in a day of taking care of a kiddo like this, trying to do our own thing, whether it's, working or helping other family members. And I know that we feel stressed. With the diagnosis, I think that eventual acceptance does come in, but for me, once in a while, that grief just butts its head up and really can get me. It might be something like running into a kiddo that was a classmate of hers that's now getting married. And I know that's never going to be part of Kaylee's story. Having children, just having great job success, it's just once in a while, it's just like, that hurts. But what can we do? What can we do, bottom line, to really, start our self-care? Well, without a doubt, you just have to be an expert on your child. You have to be an expert on the diagnosis that they have, whatever that is. It's multi-diagnostic, if they make, multiple disorders, meaning Kaylee has a GI disorder, significant GI disorder. She certainly had ADHD. I mean, she's on numerous things and she can't report anything. But I think you still become an expert. Certainly, I'm an autism expert, and how that can affect different people. The thing is with autism is that it looks differently in everyone, and how it manifests itself is differently. And so that's our great challenge. But be an expert on your child. Know the special education law of your state. So if you're just starting out, if your kiddo is young and you just know how that works in your state, and what's available to you and other resources that are available to you. It's really important. Okay, so why is self-care important? Well, we're never unplugged. And all of the stressors that are coming at us are remarkable. I mean, we're still coming through a global pandemic. We have constant, this is constant, what's coming at us. We're parenting in an age of toxic stress. We know that depression and different things are common for typical kids too, if you have other children. But the bottom line are that children are mirrors. And Dr. Stuart Shanker, some of the research that I did in preparing this, he's a psychologist from the University of Toronto. He just said that children are our mirrors. And what that means is that young children especially, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. And as such, their prefrontal cortex regulates to that of a significant adult in their life. And if you can think about this, it's like a sync up with an important person in their life. And this is called, emotional co-regulation. So when that adult brain is stressed, that inner brain connection between the child is also full of stress. Thus the reason why we were in this very, tough situation years ago with our family situation, that Kayla's behaviors got worse. I mean, I was stressed, she was stressed, she just couldn't tell me. And so that's what we see. So just know that that's what happens. I tell families, the way that I have kind of reduced my own stress is rather than thinking about going into battle, I really think about being a peaceful warrior for Kayla rather than being an angry warrior. Because I think the way some of us deal with our stress and the diagnosis that we're managing every day is that it can kind of make us mad. It makes me mad on a daily basis, but I just have had to flip that into being more of a peaceful warrior than an angry warrior. Because research says that when our stress is high, we tip into fight, flight, freeze, and nobody does their best thinking in that stage. And so we really want to think about being, I'm going to give you a few tools on how I do that and see if any of them are helpful for you to do that. Especially in my work, I tell families in my work with Children's Mercy that, you have to understand that positive attraction works better than negative, even if you're frustrated, even if you're feeling bad. I would always tell a doula is a labor support professional, and I would have women in labor and they would be yelling at the nurse, because maybe something wasn't, they didn't have something, or they were just having a bad contraction. When the nurse would leave, I'd say, listen, she potentially controls the possibility of an epidural for you. So we got to be nice to everybody around us. And I say the same thing, substitute that teacher, substitute that therapist. The bottom line is they're going to help drive the success of your kiddo. And so we really have to think about coming at them positively rather than negatively, even if that's the way we feel, even if we're frustrated. So that's something that's really worked for me, for Kayla. And so I just offer that. How did I take care of myself? Again, just to give you some ideas of how you might take care of yourself. I exercise. I often did a 5 a.m. workout because by 6 a.m., I had already done something for myself. And that really worked for me. Besides needing to stay in shape for this really physical, tough kiddo, it obviously gave me endorphins that helped me feel better. For me, I felt like working was a break. Can you relate to that? Like, instead of just being always in charge of your kid, I found that going to work and having a little bit of distraction and work and something I really loved really felt like a break for me. I had like-minded moms or friends that were doing similar journeys. You don't need a lot of them, but it's really helpful if you have some. Or dads, if you have some of those, because your concerns might be differently. I know that Dan worries about different things about Kaylee than I do. And so I think it's really, you don't need to have a million of them, just have one or two that you really can do that. I had a couple people that could save my day. And what I mean by that, especially when Kaylee was smaller and younger, she was like a whirling dervish. I mean, I would just we would walk into a room and I would just survey what she was going to take out, whether it was going to be take somebody's glasses off that was sitting there, knock over their drink. I mean, she just could do it all. And that's with medication on board. She just was still that crazy. And so I just had a couple people that I literally could call and say, hi, I'm going to kill her right now. So like, if you could come help me for like 1 hour, or better yet, take her for 1 hour. I just need an hour. And it only happened a couple times, but I am forever indebted to those people. I remember the one day was I had just gotten something ready on the, for prepping a meal, and I made some juice. One of my other two kids asked for some juice. So I made some juice, apple juice, put it in the container, and I turned around in the sink to do something else. And Kaylee took the apple juice and poured the whole pitcher out onto the floor. And I was like, and that was like the sixth thing she had done that day. And that's when I called my friend Nancy and I said, I'm at my breaking point. And, an hour later, I was totally fine. But I think it could be really helpful to have somebody that can save your day. I was very organized, especially having to do with Kaylee's schedule. And we talk a lot to our families about having a notebook that has all of their contact information, all of their school information, everything in one place. You might be able to do that on your computer. Y'all, I'm 60 years old. I do pretty well on a computer, but I still like some of my notebook organization systems. I used to keep her IEP in there, her behavior plan, medications, medication changes, things like that. So being organized is really, really, really helpful. What might help you? Making or taking time for a hobby, 30 minutes a day. I had a friend that would just read a magazine for 30 minutes. I'm like, good for you. If that works for you, that is awesome. Blocking time out for you or your partner or your children, your other typical children. I had a great deal of guilt. We always would say that Kaylee wins because it was almost always a safety issue with her. And so taking the time with my typical kids sometimes was hard, but I found that I just had to make the time for that. Usually it came at the expense of my time for myself, but I found that it changed some of their behavior too. And so that was helpful. Getting adequate rest. Oh my goodness. This is hard because my kiddo's up during the night. And so if you can, bless you. I'm so happy for you if you can get adequate rest. I still struggle with this to this day. I am going to bed earlier, but often I'm up 2 or 3 times a night because she's up. She goes right back down, but the little alarm in her room goes off and on my phone, and I know that she's up. But the bottom line is just do what you can to get adequate rest, and you are worth it. I mean, it really is important. Here's other things that help me. I pray a lot. I meditate quite a bit. Do what works for you. Try it. Find what works for you. And again, I got busy starting or doing something that would benefit other kids like Kaylee. And that was starting this foundation and trying to be part of the solution rather than just kind of sitting in the problem. That was really helpful. We sought counseling 100%. I mean, I tell people the Hammonds did not walk to counseling, we ran, because I knew, Dan and I always say Kaylee was our ticket to fidelity, because holy criminy, what were you going to do if you had to do it all yourself? And so we're still working it out, because as their life goes on, different things change of what you see your life to be. And so we're still doing that once in a while. We put in joy. And I think this is a really, really key thing. However joy looks to you, for us, right, like at this moment, it's attending our son's college baseball games. Kaylee goes with us, but it's joy to us and it's joy to her. And so we just, however joy looks, try and put it in. We laugh a lot. My husband is hilariously funny. I sometimes think he could, be a stand-up comic. I mean, at some of the saddest, most awful moments of our life, he will say something or imitate her or pretend to be her voice, and it just will take me out of the sorrow a bit. And I think laughter is just a really important medicine. We celebrated Kaylee's successes too. When she finally started walking at 2.5, we had a huge Kaylee's walking party. When she moved to that group home, my dear friends decided, and I just said to them, it's so bittersweet. And they said, we're going to have a shower for her. So like you would have a bridal shower, they had a beautiful shower and got her things that would help her moving into a group home. And it was such a happy day. It just made it happy. And for me, I try to get away with my husband at least one weekend a year, just the two of us. If we can do more than that, that's great. And it's honestly, it's been down to the Country Club Plaza at times. That's all we could do. So, whatever, but it still is getting away. However, I know that a lot of, families affected by this disorder and in the general public might not have a partner to work with them. And so I went out and just talked to some of the single parents that I know that are doing it well. And I asked them, what resources were helpful for you? And they said anything free, festivals, shows, concerts in the park, all of which have disappeared in the last 2 years, but maybe we're coming back around. Free webinars, blogs, workshops. I will say at Children's Mercy, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but maybe one of the best things that came out of the pandemic is that all the family trainings that I run are now archived and available on our website. And so if there's anything, you just Google Children's Mercy and autism and you can see what we have available, everything from dealing with sexuality to, emerging communication, sleep disorders, things like that. That's maybe one of the best things I think that's come out of the pandemic. Just talking to other parents who have been there and done that for the single parent. And the other thing that my friend at work said, she said, if you're divorced and your former spouse is still in the picture and helping, have the goal of co-parenting. And I thought this was so wise. She said, it can be very helpful to be on the same team. She said, one night after we had been at this for a couple of years, this co-parenting thing and living in different households, she said, our son was just having the worst time. And she said, usually I can think of all these things that will calm him down. And she said, it was not working that night. And so she said, I called my ex-husband and I said, this is what's happening. And I've tried all these things. Do you have anything you could suggest? And she said, he told me exactly what would work. And she said, so it can be really helpful to be on the same team. If you don't have someone to tag team with you, if or when friends or family say they'll offer to help, say yes. This has been a hard thing for me, both that I'm from a big, huge family, but I have 3 siblings here in town, but they all are busy with their families. And often, especially when Kaylee was younger, they'd be like, we'll take Julia and Daniel. I'd be like, really? Could you take Kaylee so that I can have some time with Julia and Daniel? But you need to tell people what you need, and you need to, and I'm saying this is what I needed to do. People often would say to me, Marianne, you never looked like you needed help. I'm like, like that is, wow, that's on me then, I guess. So if somebody offers help, say yes. She also said that, she found herself telling her story wherever she went. You just never know who could listen or who might make your life better or give you a tip or make something easier for you. And I thought that was really a good suggestion. What do you have to give yourself grace regarding? This is, again, the single parent, but I think it could apply to any of us. Balanced home cooked meals. I happen to love to cook. So that's almost a therapy for me. But I can see where people that don't, that they, sometimes mac and cheese is good enough. Sometimes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is good enough. Sometimes breakfast is for dinner is perfect. So just giving yourself grace toward that. A clean house. She said she hired finally, after being frustrated about this, about her own self-care, she ended up spending the money and hiring a cleaning service to do some of the deep cleaning stuff that wasn't happening in her house, so that then she could have time, a little bit more time for herself. Surrendering how things are done. Putting away my kids' laundry, or having them put it away, may not look like how I would do it, putting away. But you know what? Pick your battles, because maybe it's good enough and maybe you'll have to settle into that. This is hard for me because I am really a perfectionist, but I have so let go of that some in my life, because I just realize it's the higher my expectations, the lower my serenity. So I just have really tried to surrender that. Just give yourself regarding lack of patience, especially if you're the only one caring for that. I can only imagine. Lack of communication with friends, that sometimes gets frustrating. Sometimes I wish my friends who know kind of what my life is like, why aren't they the ones organizing things? Why am I still the one organizing things? But I just have to let go of that and say, you know what, maybe that organizing something gives me a little break. Maybe that is like self-care for me. So I've kind of changed my, tune, and just accept that. I think all of us, as we get older in parenting, some of the communication changes in general. This one, I still to this day have a little hard time with, just feeling guilty about how much my time with my kiddo with special needs takes compared to my typical kids. The good news is, early on when we had 2 other children, was that one of the great reliefs were, those typical kids could make me just as angry as that kiddo with special needs. I mean, honestly, that was a real relief, because since she was our first, I was like, it has to do with what she has going on. I'm like, nope. Those other ones can make me just as mad or just as happy. So I was really actually very relieved to find that. Family dynamics. What I would suggest is that, with your other people in your family, is that we try and give value to their feelings. We try and recognize that they too are going to be feeling some feelings that maybe they don't like, or maybe they are not able to completely articulate to you. I know I would feel guilty as a sibling if I knew that my sibling with special needs required so much extra support, but I still felt left out. I still felt like I needed more. So I tried to learn to just listen to my typical kids and not interject. And we would do this in some family meetings, especially when things were really dicey. At different times, I'd be like, family meeting Sunday night, let's go. And honestly, for us, I would put Kayla into her room, because she likes being in her room by herself, with her toys and things like that. And it would just be us, so that I wouldn't be distracted by her. And sometimes we do something fun. You might do a game afterwards. Sometimes we might go do something, miniature golfing, or nicer weather, something like that. So it's just a great idea to have a family meeting to check in. There were some significant tears shed at those family meetings when I would stop talking and I would just listen, and also just some really beautiful moments. I just remember once saying to my kids, and I'm going to say, Daniel was maybe junior high and Julia was like a senior in high school. And I said, I've just been such a hard time. I said, I just want to say, I'm so sorry she takes so much time. I'm so sorry. And my daughter said, Mom, don't apologize. We get it. And Daniel gets it too. And she said, I think if you'd ask us, we wouldn't want it any other way. We wouldn't want any other sister than Kaylee. And so I'm telling you, you can stop apologizing for that. And it was really a moment for us. And I was like, okay, Okay, we're all, kind of operating as a unit. I appreciate that very much. I will say, when I talk about my typical kids, some of my coworkers that have gotten to know my family, quite well, one of the nurses that I really love, I was saying something about Julia and Daniel one day, and she said, Marianne, you know what? I always smile when you talk about your typical kids, because what I want to tell you is there's nothing typical about your typical kids. And I think that's really the gift of Kaylee to our family, is the idea that their compassion, their empathy, their understanding that things are so hard for her and things are so, in many ways, easy for them comparatively. I think it's given them a different perspective that has helped their resilience in life. And so for that, I'm looking at it as a win. There's some significant respite programs in Kansas City. If you live here, now they all shut down during the pandemic, but I think they're in the process of opening back up again. I've heard of some recently. And so just know that, again, you have to surrender their care for a bit of time. But I'm telling you, we used to do the sib shop thing, and it was 3 hours on a Friday night. And I just couldn't get over how much better I felt at the end of 3 hours of just having a break, knowing that I could totally trust after, filling out the 8 pages of descriptions of what they're like and how you can help them. It was really, really beneficial. And actually our typical kids went to those too. They had, one little track for typical and then for the kids with special needs. And they actually, when they were smaller, they really liked that too. We've also found great value in a camp, and I'm not advertising Camp Barnabas. That just happens to be the one that our family has taken advantage of. Kaylee went, I met the original directors of Camp Barnabas so many years ago at a fair that I was, a special needs fair that I was trying to find a car seat solution for Kaylee, who kept slinking out of her car seat. And I met them all those years ago. And so our kids, our typical kids, and Kaylee have gone to this camp every year. It's been in operation. And sometimes they go at the same time. Sometimes they go at different times. And then in the later years, Julia and Daniel ended up being missionaries at this camp and helping out. And what they would often come home and say to me is, Mom, Kaylee is so easy compared to everybody else. And I'd be like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? To know that there were other kids that were so much more difficult than her. And that gave them perspective too. But I was like, wow, all I can say is, wow. I often tell families they kind of have to rethink vacations, because I joke that, going on vacation is sort of like hell in another place, because you don't have all your normal supports. You don't have all your familiar things. I mean, Kaylee will wander at night. So we have flipped the lock on her door and we lock it from the hall side. So, I mean, we've been, at my parents' house or on vacations where she escapes. And then, so again, my expectations are that I'm not going to probably get good rest on vacation. I'm not probably going to get a lot of me time, but but in working with, maybe taking a helper with me, or just even we started making a schedule during vacation of even asking Julia and Daniel, or maybe another cousin that loves her, just take her for 30 minutes. Just give me a 30-minute break. I'm not asking you to give me the whole day. I'm just asking that. Occasionally, I planned a staycation here for Kaylee and hired help while we went on vacation. And I'm giving you permission to leave your child with special needs home and go and have a vacation without them. And a vacation can be going to Branson for a couple of days. I'm not saying you need to go to Europe. I'm just saying, maybe do something. And I don't know about you, but for me, those times away, because like we love to ski, my kids love to ski, so Kaylee can't ski. So you feel like it's double the time that you're actually there. So 4 days feel like 8 because I'm without her, because I'm without all the things that I need to do for her. And so just think about maybe something like that would work. At all times, just be prepared. I often early on would complain about the lack of spontaneity because I have to thicken all Kaylee's liquids. She still wears a pull-up. A lot of days it stays dry all day. That's fabulous, but I need to have wipes, a change of clothes, a special cup for her. Her at times when she had med doses during the day, just keep some of that stuff in your car so that if you are out and about, you have an opportunity to, seize the moment. And just planning can make such a difference. These are also just some other suggestions from someone that talks about self-care a lot. Get outside, take some steps, change your scenery, soak up sun. Sun is so important. We've had so little of it this spring, but even if for a few minutes. Portable light therapy energy lamp, believe it or not, they really have found that can be beneficial. And I do that in my office at Children's Mercy because I have no windows, no light. So I often turn on my, I call it my happy lamp. Crank up the tunes. Take care of your nutritional needs. This is a silly thing, but this is true for me. Protein shakes are an easy help. Just getting good nutrition, that's such an easy thing to do and something that can really benefit you. Tag team, if somebody sleeps better or somebody, does something better, like somebody sleeping better, let them cover the nighttime issues or take turns. Talk to an adult. Just know that you can't ignore self-care because there can be some big crashes. And again, like I said, I found that even 1 hour away, I could just really, really regroup better. We're not exempt. None of us are exempt from other difficult life events. Wouldn't it be fabulous if we'd say this would be the only one that we had to have in our life? But this is our list. Unemployment. My husband actually just got reemployed again after losing his job during the pandemic. He has been a super successful businessman, but just weird situations that we've had. We've had death of parents, family members, illness, problems with depression, difficulty finding enough help. Anybody feeling that right now as far as if you have anybody that helps you out with your child? The very small period of time that Kayla was in the group home, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so for the first time in my life, I couldn't take care of her. And so even though that maybe wasn't the right fit for her in retrospect, it really filled a great need for me at the time. And so I've always just kind of put that into the gratitude category for myself. So, the reason that we might gift ourselves some self-care is something I'm going to explain on the next slide. But I think a result of some good self-care is just increased resilience. And that it's just so important to our life. This Dr. Shanker says that, the one I talked about at the beginning, said that take 10% of the love and energy that you donate each day to your child with special needs and give it back to yourself. 10%. Essentially, you will be giving it to them as well, because what you reflect is often how they're going to. During my little cancer journey, everything's fine now, but one of my friends gave me this book called Calm the Chaos, and it's just a gratitude journal. And it suggests that every day, you just note 3 things that you're grateful for. And I'm really a glasses half full person, big time. And yet I found that actually recording 3 things a day, and you can't repeat them the next day, right? So you got to find something new. And it might be something like I went out to lunch and it was amazing and I didn't have to fix it, or I got to see a friend, or I saw some little success with my kiddo, or, I'm cancer free, whatever it might be. Just kind of taking stock of that. It really, really, really did work for me. And I hope maybe something like that might work for you. Also, when I was sick, I got this card from one of my coworkers that said this saying, "You're brave and brilliant and so resilient." And I think that could be the mantra for most of our family, families affected by this disorder. We've had to make decisions on so many things that different people in our lives don't have to. I feel like even though the pandemic was terrible for so many of our families, terrible for our kids by shutting down activities and taking them out of their routine and things that really, tip them on their head, I feel like we took it better than a lot of families. I think that resilience, honestly, I was like, kind of glad for a little shutdown. Now, I didn't want it to last 2.5 years, but I actually kind of loved the slower pace. And I loved having my other kids home, which I wasn't planning on, and so that part was good. So that's my little self-help thing. Just remember that, when you take it for yourself, you're able to give it back, especially to your kiddo that you have to, requires more care. So think of your own thing. I hope I just gave you a couple of ideas of something that might work for you. And I applaud you for what you do and for the ways in which you need to go about your day-to-day life. And I would take any questions if anybody has any questions. Or any suggestions on their own self-care. Yeah.
What age group did you start your family meetings?
I'm sorry.
What age for your children when you started the family meetings? The once a month family.
The family meetings. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I can't. It's hard to hear. I'm gonna say junior high-ish. So a little bit later, when they were really busy with their own activities and things, and sometimes it was a little harder to connect. Yeah. When was the time I started family meetings? They're effort, but man, they're fruitful. And I guess be once a month. Everybody can't complain about once a month. I usually had something really good for dinner that night, that they really liked. Is there another question? Anybody have a self-care thing that they do that I didn't mention that somebody else could benefit from here? Yeah.
Well, I'm a resource coordinator and I work with families. And I had a mom that you were talking about staycation and she was being her husband recently started working out of town.
Mm.
So he's traveling all week long and she's really a lot more frazzled than she
Yes.
thought she would be.
Yes.
And she took just one night, she called it her sensory deprivation night,
I love it.
and went to a hotel,
Love it.
closed the blinds, turned off the TV, unplugged the phone,
Love
the
it.
computer, everything,
Yeah.
and just relaxed.
Amazing.
And she said it was amazing.
It's amazing. It's just amazing how reducing all that input that we have in our life, just making a conscious effort to do it, and just a tiny bit of getaway. I mean, like for me, I can go get a pedicure and, I feel like I've totally treated myself to something that feeds my soul. And so that's a great
Yeah, when her
example.
husband came home that weekend, she was like, I'm going.
Right, and bye-bye. Yep, when Kaylee was small, like the incidence of the apple juice, my husband he was out of town maybe 2 to 3 weeks a month for the week. And so I was sort of flying solo, and the kids definitely can take advantage of that sometimes. Anything else? Take a minute to fill out the evaluation, if you will. We always know that we can do it better. And so I love any feedback that you can give about what could be better, because that helps me drive the next talk of what I'm doing. And I just appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that possibly something to maybe touch more on for parents or truly anyone is understanding that it's okay to be busy. I think that so frequently people look at self-care as slowing down and relaxing.
Yeah, good point.
And that isn't always what's best for some people. I know
Right.
myself personally, I love to be busy. I'm a parent with a child with special needs, but I'm also a provider now. And it's miserable to me when I'm sitting doing nothing. That
Yes.
makes my brain just go,
Really
go, go,
good
go, go.
point.
And so I think it's important to tell families it's okay to be busy and to not think that relaxing is just like slowing down and turning all the lights out
Right.
and watching a movie, you know, things like that. And I think so frequently others make you feel guilty for constantly being busy. And I have finally been bold enough to say, it's okay. That's what I like. It's what I need. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
just
love
encouraging
that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really, really, really good thing. And yeah, I mean, what feeds you? That's the whole thing, you know, like does less feed you or more feed you? What? So that I'm so glad you mentioned it. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment that I feel like a presentation such as this, being able to be open and share your story with other family, other people, I think it kind of normalizes our personal experiences, even though none of ours are the same. But I just feel like I could just totally relate with the things that you say. I like to keep myself busy too. And that's my way of kind of giving to other people. And that's kind of my love language or whatever. Too.
Yes, right.
And
Yeah, acts of service.
I really appreciate this format.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
It's getting recorded.
You know, I think it is. I think it is. Okay, if you'd stay just for 1 second so I can count, because I have to have a count of how many people were here. Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I put a reservation for that. Now I'm fairly focused. There was a lot of that. Sure. And I have a niece that, even though I'm not a parent,
Yeah, you get it.
I get it.
Fabulous. Oh, yeah, all you have to do.
And so
is
I
have
struggle with
internet.
that.
Yeah, no, you can say, but I do, because I have somebody that I love.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm just sitting at resources for my brother and his wife too.
Gosh, I mean, okay.
So I will, but I also, they're gonna make me feel
Oh,
this.
that's really nice, because like all of the trainings that I do, you know, are not online.
Right.
Are autism, so, you know.
I mean, it just might get, I know my sister reaches out for all kinds of things, but sometimes somebody else, like everything you say today, it's just. It is fun when people, and I talked to some colleagues that one child that, they told me, and we want you to get to know it's out there.
No, you have to find something.
You have to find self-care, and I'm just like,
But
let me put you in those shoes.
Right, yeah, it's good.
But I'm always looking for resources because I see how fast with like our families, just for like, these days,
Yeah.
a lot of those kids have autism or different things. They're stuck in the room. And it's like the parents need support too. It's not always sometimes wanting other resources to help the parents too. So I might connect with them more. Because you're helping, and our social, I know they are good. It's just everything has come so. And so I'm just like, like, sometimes I speak resources.
I have a resource.
Okay.
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 And we don't have to hire you.
Awesome.
To contact me. And I wanted to let you know that if you have any trouble with your. We have a recipe.
I was like,
For all kinds of developmental disabilities. And
I was gonna.
If we're living or they're 50 years old.
Okay,
But
awesome.
yeah,
So I just wanted to be
Great.
grateful.
Thank you.
Resources.
I'll
like
have,
that.
Robin joins our family resource coordinator, and she coordinates family, so I'll have her give you a call.
Oh, that's
So she can better understand. That'd be great.
And if we felt like a social worker for our family families, but I think our needs so different with safety right now. And there's just times like I want someone to help the parenting because I can just feel it there. And I know I'm not the parent, but I have some of brothers. I mean,
You have a very young.
I mean, it's just like, she's 13 now. They adopted her when she was a baby. They had no idea.
Right.
And they've got 4 other kids.
I-
They're all older now. They have one less at home.
Still,
But just like everything you're saying is just like, it is just, oh yeah, and she's, I can go on and on, but then, I was gonna ask you, what the watch, so you know when she's awake? Tell me what that is, because they have like, for the longest time, she has to sleep in the same bedroom with them.
yeah, you know.
And now when she sleeps alone, if she gets awake, she'll do stuff really.
Oh, do you know how many times I've dealt with
Okay,
that?
okay.
Okay, or the
So-
whole floor is covered?
But,
Oh,
but
the
if
shade
they
is
have a
all.
service coordinator, do not tell the service coordinator that you're not.
I know,
them in the
I know,
bedroom.
I know, I can't do that, I can't.
Yeah,
I can't
But I'm
do
just
that.
curious when you said that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder if
no,
my
I know.
brother and his
I'm
wife have
I'm
that.
aware of that, because when she,
One of my moms, the same one I was telling you about, she locks the door, the house door, so that she can't get out. She has to lock the fire. I said,
Yeah.
you lock the house door for your family's safety, so that strangers can't walk in.
Right.
Well, although I do a lot of training to police and EMS, and they said you have to keep it safe at their house. So you just have to alert, like we alert the fire department that her door is locked, like she can't get out of it. So this is what happens, so like.
But
this
don't
is-
let your-
What is this? Is there an app or is
Yeah,
it?
it's called Wayne's View.
Okay, I just wanna write,
Wayne's View. So it's just an online
because
app.
I'm like, if they could catch it, as soon as she like wakes up, you know, before the nightmare happens.
Yeah, it will alert you that you're.
It's called what again?
Wayne's View, so.
Okay, I'm just gonna
I'll
send
show
it
you
to
here.
myself.
Do you want to just take a,
Let me take a picture.
yeah, this is the.
Just you said that, and I'm like,
Wayne's View.
if there's something else that I can give that, you know, to parents.
And the nice thing is, even when I'm out of town, it's hard for me,
No, you can look at it. Okay, so where's it at? Wait, let's view. I might just,
That's it.
oh, Wayne's View there, Wayne's View. Of course, I gotta figure it out on my camera right now. Hold on. Wayne's View. Okay, just give me one more second. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's similar to that, that's outside the time.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I will probably connect with you,
Please
just
do,
like,
Amy, please do.
not just because it's
So it's just,
that.
yeah, and it's not, so like, this is a view of her room right now, but like, when she gets home, or sometimes when she's just playing by herself, then I can just see what she's doing.
And I have a lot of. I wish I was. I really. And, I'd like to direct them to, you know, you've got those archives of.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah, yeah, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, how important, how important.
Okay, we have a few questions, sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Well, for me is, do you show a list with the programs for respite?
Record?
It's possible to have that,
Can we email it to you?
yes,
Sure, give me your,
I don't have my.
here, just give me your email address right here, and I will email it to you. It might be Monday,
It's okay.
okay?
I just wanted to ask you if you know of any other programs in the area. My son's currently in preschool, Autism from the Start.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good program. And I would love to see if there were any other programs for older kids because they age out for kindergarten.
How old is, oh, so he's preschool?
Yeah, he's 4,
Uh-huh.
and then he'll be there for like another year and a half, and then
Okay.
he goes into the public school system.
And what, then you're welcome, I will do that, Sarah.
And right now, he's mainly nonverbal,
Okay,
but he's is showing progress. So I think after a certain amount of time, he will attain a certain level of verbalization.
sure, great.
So I do feel like he could probably go into public school
Uh-huh.
if he did get to that.
Uh-huh.
point. However, I would feel more comfortable if there was a particular program or series of programs at older age groups that I knew about, so that I knew that there was kind of an alternative if the public school didn't work out as well.
So, So I know Autism from the Start, it's in Kansas, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're currently, well, Plum is their original location. Their house is being expanded so they can take more clients,
Mhm.
and that should finish up in June. And they'll go back to like that Plum and 95th.
You know, most
location.
of the alternative programs
Are for young.
Well, actually, and for real behavior problems.
Yeah, he's not.
And so honestly, you know, if you can find so what school district is your district?
I'm over in DeSoto.
DeSoto's a very good.
Yes, they have a really good. They work real closely with like the Shawnee group,
Yes.
and I have spoken to that group out there, and I put them into AFTS, and so I coordinated with them because they're like, well, you know, you're having them in something for 35 hours a week, so we can't really offer that right now. So we opted for this instead, and then of course we'll revisit like an IEP if he is
Right.
eligible for the public
Right.
school.
Right.
However, you know, we'll definitely, right now I'm trying to figure out speech therapy because he is starting to mimic. So I feel like if we can get the speech therapy in place to really reinforce that, what he's getting there and what he's getting at home, then we can really try to fine tune
Mhm.
that process that goes from, you know, what he wants to say to the speaking part.
Actually speaking, yeah.
Right, because I believe there's like some kind of disorder there with that processing point, because he doesn't understand what you're saying for most. When he
Or just
focuses.
might be that he takes a little longer to process it from auditory to speaking, you know?
Right, but, I mean, he is responding, so I feel like he will get that back and forth if you do put him with a therapist for speech.
Do you, it's just I'm just curious, did you get your diagnosis at KU or at
Children's
Children's?
Mercy
Okay,
with
well,
Little.
okay, Dr. Little,
She's
yeah.
awesome.
She's maybe the best diagnostician, one of the best top diagnosticians.
She's great.
She
She really-
retired.
Oh, I heard. So Erin works, she's over in the genetics group,
Okay.
and we just had coffee on Saturday with our AFTS group. Both
Oh,
parents had coffee.
nice.
And so she was telling, well, she had mentioned that a long time ago, but she was telling me, she was like, and Hammond's gonna be there. You've got to go if Hammond's gonna be there. And I was like, I will. I will.
nice.
So she only had awesome things because we both were talking about it. We both had genetic makeups on our kids, and we both have the uncommon variants. Nobody knows.
Exactly. And the
Who?
reality is nobody knows.
Right. That's what I was like. The nobody knows factor.
Yeah, right.
So
Same. I'm in
Right.
the same factor.
Right.
Kayla's in the same factor.
where you're
Nope.
like, there's no.
There's no
where the wind blows.
reason. Yeah,
But
that's right.
so we were laughing about that, like, and she had mentioned how those genetic mock-ups, they ping them like every once in a while against kind of like an Interpol thing against like like general databases, but they don't really release the information for whatever reason, probably privacy, I would imagine. But I was like, wouldn't it be awesome if everybody could just be like, yes, release this information. Let's do like an awesome like dump of
Group
information
share.
where
Yeah.
we could just
Right.
you know.
See.
But yeah, so we were just talking about that, and she had mentioned, so that's why I'm here, is because I really wanted to see your presentation.
Oh,
And
I hope it was okay. I hope you got something from it.
well, it's good. It's good. It's just that, you know, as the main advocate for your person, you have to kind of get all of out there. And just
You do.
like,
You do.
octopus it. I got a tentacle in each little
Yep.
thing over here.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to head off, like any potential alternatives for schooling and learning. And
I think you're doing it right. I think, you know, I visited a lot with school ahead of
Mhm.
time, you know, about how that would look. And I will tell you, you know, we often say, actually, you know, putting your kiddo in a more specialized classroom is not necessarily
Yeah.
great for them. So the whole
not for
idea
the
of
socializing, I would
socialization, yeah,
imagine.
and even just some of the interaction, you know, some
Mhm.
of the just general interaction.
They do have a peer thing going on at the DeSoto school and
Great,
Shawnee, where
great.
they'll bring typical
Yeah,
neurotypical kids in
Yeah.
and have them interact with the students,
great.
which is great. I mean, to be honest, his sister, who is neurotypical, is a wonderful. I don't know how to.
Influence, I mean,
Well, I would say she's more she's very intuitive in her ability to use.
You're welcome, Sean. Oh, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
I'm sorry, I'm
Oh,
just
that's
talking
okay.
your head off.
No, that's okay. I'm
Um,
so glad you
But
did.
she's very neurotypical, and then she is also very intuitive when it comes to emotions and how to use those to her advantage.
Oh.
I don't want to say it in a mean way. It's not mean.
Yeah, no.
It takes a certain skill to know how to
Yes.
push a person's buttons
Yes,
and
it
identify those and get those just
does.
right. I mean,
Yes.
not always the negative thing.
Yeah.
Or as I would mention, she's like, it's like living with Meryl Streep. It's always like a dramatic, everything is
A lot
like
of
top
drama.
I know,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
like, you're
yeah.
7. I'm gonna need this
Yeah,
to,
right,
it's gonna be
right,
crazy when you hit your
right.
hormonal surge.
Right.
But,
Isn't that funny? It
She
funny.
is, he learns from her.
Absolutely.
So when he watches her,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
what she does, he's picking up her cues. And as you know, and as you mentioned about your daughter, it's almost, I don't want to say it in a negative way because it's not negative, but it's like they're in tune with their
Totally.
animal nature of intuitive knowledge about whether someone means you harm.
Totally.
And he doesn't deal with any BS. And if he likes you, he likes you. If he doesn't like you, he's not going to talk to you and be polite. And that's just part of their internal.
I think so. And what they've been kind of feeling they've had to observe, for that sibling for a long time.
Right.
And I think that's really true too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that socializing with his sister has taught him more
Yeah.
than some of these other programs because she is a little devious.
Well, yeah.
And that's great.
And you know what?
because
That's
how
typical,
people
right?
are.
That's right. That's how they
People
are,
very
for
devious.
sure. Did you know that on Monday we have a day of learning?
Yes, I will be doing that.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna talk about IEPs on that day.
Perfect.
So,
Because I was curious how they set those up.
Yeah.
And then, I'm always curious. I went to the psychotropic information thing,
Mhm.
but I hate to apply that early, but then I don't want to not apply it if
Yeah.
it's needed.
Yeah,
So,
I think
I'm
you
never
are doing
sure.
exactly the right thing. You're getting the information. I was interested because
Mhm.
we've tried some different things with Kaylee, and I could not do it without medication.
Right.
Or-
And it's hard. That's a fine tightrope line
Yep.
between being able to tell if he's frustrated because he's not able to communicate or
Right.
for some other cause,
Right.
or if he's frustrated because he can't self-regulate
Totally.
his information.
How do you
or
tease that out
something.
sometimes? It's
Right.
very
And
hard.
if he can't verbalize what's
Right.
going on, I'm like,
Right.
it's like miming. I'm
I
like,
know.
What is it?
I know.
Let me
What is
guess.
it? Yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
when they were like little babies and I'd be like, is it the socks?
I
No,
know.
It's not the socks.
I know.
Is it,
I
are you
know.
hungry?
I know.
Is it the diaper's good?
I
You
know.
need
Are
this
you
blanket just-
overstimulated? What
Can
is
you use
it?
the blanket tighter? Is
I
it
know.
looser?
I know. It's just and the energy that takes to do that. I mean, we don't even know.
It is like you are constantly on.
Yeah.
It's like how I would describe soldiers.
Yes.
In the
Oh, yeah, I
field,
totally
And as
think
parents,
so.
you're on. That's why the vacation is not a vacation.
Yeah.
I was like, are you
You should
kidding
have
me?
seen the nods I've got because I was just like, when I would articulate.
Why would I want to take him out someplace where I could lose him? We've got locks on our doors.
I know.
We've got a lock on our fence.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
I know. Like,
Why would I
out in the
take him to
public?
some random?
Yeah. When I'm supposed to do some relaxing there, it's not even a day.
How was your vacation? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
there's no such thing unless you're without them.
No,
And then
I
you're worried
mean-
about them at home. But
Right, and then
still.
you're always trying to anticipate,
Mhm.
but yeah, you know that. So anyway,
I do. Tell me your name.
I'm Ari.
Harry.
Pond.
Harry Pond. Okay, Harry and Marianne.
Nice to meet you.
I think Monday's gonna be really good.
I'm really excited because it's a lot of stuff in his
It
age
is.
group.
Yeah,
and
great.
a lot of stuff that.
And I'll tell you, the Thompson Center, I mean, not that our providers aren't good, but the Thompson Center is exceptional. We really love doing things with them. So they're co-hosting it.
Okay,
And,
good.
And they're gonna be great.
I
So
wish it was more in person too, so
I
that,
know.
because there's a lot of things you can say in person that you can't. virtually.
Children's Mercy, this is the second thing I've done in a week, and that's the most I've done in 2 years, in person. They have not been allowed to go out.
I understand, because he's too young for the vaccine.
I know,
So can't
right,
really get it for him.
Right.
That's what I'm waiting for. I was like, what?
And we're gonna do a vaccine clinic on that.
Oh, good.
So, stay tuned. Do you get our newsletter that we send out? So
So,
Google Children's Mercy
okay.
and Autism. It'll be on our landing page, and the very first thing you can do is hit the green box to sign up for our newsletter. All you put in is your email address and your name.
I was gonna go through and see about speech therapy.
Oh, yeah, and so I was gonna say, contact Robin Jordan. She may have
She's our family resource coordinator.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
talk to her one
I
time.
talked, well, email with Robin.
Yeah,
She's
if
awesome.
she's fabulous, also a parent, a kiddo with or an adult.
That's what she told me, because she told me about how you're keeping track of the information. She's like, get yourself a
Yes.
folder, get
Yep.
yourself like a.
Yep.
And I was like, that's right, okay.
Yep, I'll talk about that in my AD talk, but she will have a list of therapists too, so she maybe could help you.
I did want to mention something too that, so when I was working with the student, public school system, they mentioned something to me that I found very interesting. Apparently, any documentation that you give them, that they store is not private. And it can be requested by any teacher administrator within the system. That's interesting. Without it having to be related exactly to that particular student. It could be anywhere in the system or in the government, in the state government. So I refused to give them a copy of the psych eval from Dr. Little, because I was like,
You
look,
don't want
I,
it to be used against them. so to
yes,
speak.
I was like, look, I don't want to be pigeonholed,
Right, right.
because I don't know where he's gonna be in a couple of years.
I believe you, I'm not, that's the first time I've ever heard
And
that.
she said, well, if you don't want this information possibly getting out, then don't give it to us. And that's completely understandable. I was like, I appreciate that. So I just thought I'd mention that. 'cause I
So,
thought-
you know, you could give them the results of the evaluation, but.
Once you give it to them, you're basically signing a waiver.